The Marine Toys for Tots foster care program is bringing hope to children who need it most. Every 2 minutes, a child enters foster care, often with only a small bag of belongings. More than 400,000 children face trauma and uncertainty, many before age 8. This May, during Foster Care Awareness Month, Toys for Tots is creating Room for Joy. In 2025, nearly 375,000 children received comfort through toys, books, and essentials, reminding them they are not alone. Donate now and change a child's life.
It's Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios, here's Lionel.
Alrighty, Lionel with you. This is another, not some other, not yet another, but another side of midnight. We will be here for the next 3 hours. 3 hours, providing you with gems, pearls of wisdom, new means of analysis, different things we can throw at you, which I find utterly and absolutely fascinating. Let me start off as I am normally wont to do by giving a hearty hello and a hi-oh silver and a congratulations and a kudos to Dr. Sky. He had on one of my, and I say this with all pride, one of my oldest friends in the business, Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org. I have been talking to Dane for so long. And one of my passions has always been the notion of geoengineering. We never call it chemtrails. Do you hear what I'm saying? Never. And you cannot believe the pushback that I received from people in the past on various iterations, stations or what have you, who said, "Oh no, that's a conspiracy theory." That's what? It's a conspiracy theory. And I thought, oh no, not again. Why is it a conspiracy theory? Well, you know. No, I don't know. Tell me, why is it again, it's the wrong word. And I'm gonna hit you with stuff broken record time. You're gonna say, is he talking about that again? Yes. Because this is not a conspiracy. A conspiracy, listen to me again, is two or more people or groups, if you will, working in confederation, working together to bring about something. If you commit a crime, let's say by yourself, you're by yourself. If you align yourself with somebody, then it's a conspiracy. Sometimes you can call them an accomplice. You can use other particular words. So when somebody says, is this a conspiracy theory? What they mean is this something crazy or dangerous? Or is this an example of the government hiding something? But what they're saying is this a theory about a confederation of two or more people? What? No, this is not a conspiracy theory. No, he acted by himself here. You know, so-and-so, I believe, committed the murder because he was under the spell of a demon. Oh, is that a conspiracy theory? No, he was acting alone, unless you consider the demon to be the other part of the conspiracy. Does that make any sense to you? This person was driving and perhaps lost control of his vehicle because of Wi-Fi contamination of his pineal gland. Oh, is that a conspiracy theory? No, he was by himself. Unless the Wi-Fi industry worked in concert with somebody else. Do you see what I'm saying? A conspiracy is the number of people involved. It has nothing to do with the quality of the information. It has nothing to do with the the subject matter, and yet we still do it all the time. We say it all the time. Everybody does. Everybody. And somebody one time said, "Yeah, we like conspiracy theories." I said, "Let me tell you something. You do not. No, you don't. Do you really want me to hit you with one? Because I'll tell you a story about two or more people acting in confederation, along with a subject matter which you will think, oh no, I can't. We can't talk about that." Which leads me into the next part of this. The truth. Oh. I went to a Jesuit high school in Tampa, Florida, years ago. And this is our 50th anniversary. I will not be in attendance, but I nonetheless, I read the alumni, news or whatever it is. And they have these alums who go back and speak to these young men. And it's pretty much to tell them extol their own virtues. I'm sorry. Look what I did. Look at my success. Look at my grand, triumphs. And maybe if you're lucky, you can be as cool and as successful as I am. I know that might be a bit. People will say, "Oh, no." I say, yes, but that's the truth. Which leads me to tonight's first topic, the truth. It is a subject of complete and total fascination on my part and has been for years. Somebody said, "Go out there and speak the truth." Are you sure about that? You mean your truth. You don't mean mine. What do you mean? Well, see, the truth will not set you free. It will clobber you. If you go out and you don't test the waters and you dare to speak the truth, you could forget it. I mean, you can just forget it. Because what is the opposite of the truth? Is it a lie? No. It's non-truth. It's sanitized truth. It's like turning down the volume, turning down the intensity, turning down, we never speak the truth. Years ago, there was a fellow named, you probably heard of him, Howard Stern. I never heard a Howard Stern show in my life live. I couldn't tell you what station it was on. I couldn't tell you what K-Rock was, where it was, or never interested me ever. I would hear from time to time on, YouTube or whatever it was. And I happened to be, I think one time, I was on one version of it. It's very nice. Gary Dalabate invited me on. It was one of those post shows. I don't know. Some of the lamest stuff I've ever heard in my life. Just lame. I thought, oh, okay, that's nice. But anyway, and God bless his success. But he was called a shock jock. And the only thing that was shocking about it was a subject matter usually of a sexual nature. That's really what it meant. It meant that it was shocking of a sexual nature. Never the truth. Never, I don't know, something of import. But it was just sexual. And I thought, no, that's boring. That's boring. What's really shocking today is the truth. There I go again. The truth. That will get you clobbered. Absolutely clobbered. And you might say, but isn't all the truth the same? No, not necessarily. Don't people want to hear the truth? No, absolutely not. Under no circumstances. Never. Unless the truth comports with me, with my worldview. Depending upon the group I'm in, I say right off the bat, let me see, who is this group? Well, this is a group of, let's say it's young Republicans or it's Republicans. Do they want me to tell the truth, let's say about President Trump? And people will look at me and they'll say, what do you mean? It's the truth. Wait a minute. What do you mean the truth? The truth. Wait. What truth? Okay. Let's say it's a young Democrats club. I say the same thing. Do you want me to tell the truth about President Trump? Yeah. So long as what? So long as it's our truth. Well, what do you mean your truth? Is there relative truth? Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you go out and you trash him, we'll love you for that. We don't want to hear anything about Biden. Yeah, but that's the truth. No. So let me just start with this notion of this myth that I want to dispel, the idea of the truth. There's no such thing. So if I were to speak to my high school class, I did one time, and the young people, they're still recovering, because I told them things that frankly they said, well, I don't know if that was appropriate, not of a sexual nature, but just truth about school, truth about high school, truth about the role of high school, truth about what it's like to be an adult in the world with these mendacious, crazy, stupid, crazy people that we have to deal with. That's kind of what I said. You sure they want me to say this? But I did, and they didn't like it. Some people got upset. Would you want me to talk about Catholic Church? Would you talk about that? About no. Do you see what I'm saying? You see? So then we get into the notion of what is a lie. Now this is the epistemology. In essence, this is about how we know things. This is about what knowledge is. This is about This is about the idea of what is and isn't this particular concept that we talk about. And it's something which every single show from time to time should kind of recalibrate with their audience and tell them, this is exactly what's going on. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I'm going to tell you what I hear. And I'm going to tell you what I think is substantiated or not substantiated. And sometimes I'm going to tell you something which should not surprise you, but that's the way of the world. Now let's talk about a lie. What is a lie? What is a lie? Is it the opposite of the truth? No. A lie. And I got this one time from a case. It was involving, the subject was prosecutorial misconduct. And during the course of this, the prosecutor said that the defendant or the defense attorney or somebody was lying. And this was subject to a motion for mistrial, and the appellate court dealt with the notion of what is a lie. And I always like this definition. A lie is a misrepresentation of fact with the intent to deceive. And I always said that was good until I asked, deceive how? If somebody says, how do I look in this? How do I look? Well, how does this dress look? How do these glasses look? How does this new rug look? How's my surgery? How do I look? If I think you look ghastly, but that would hurt your feelings, but the truth would be, I think you look horrible. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say you look great. Or you try to do my version of it, or say, interesting. If somebody makes a point and you have to respond, normally to somebody who was your superior, you always say something like, interesting. And then you're not going to get into it with them. So is that a lie? Well, maybe, because it's not interesting. But if you tell somebody something, if you lie to them, if you say, we're going to do it, we're going to do great. The country's never looked better. The economy's never looked better. Is that a lie? Well, not really. If somebody says, how do I look? And you say, great. Sometimes the deception is for a good reason. If I tell somebody the truth right now, and it hurts them, it defeats them, it causes them to lose their spirit, their spunk, their verve, their will to fight and resist. What have I accomplished? Nothing. Is that beneficial? No, not at all. So what I want to do is just talk about something. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is I love this new sense of, I guess you'd call it, it's kind of like a YouTube favorite of mine, and that's called stolen valor. And it's people who go around and they pretend to be something they're not. Did you ever know somebody years ago who drove an old cop car who wanted you to think they were kind of like the police? Have you ever seen that? It's one of the scariest things you've ever seen. It's like, my God, they're crazy. They're nuts. There are people who go around the country saying they were Navy SEALs because everybody was SEAL Team 6. Everybody said, and they would walk around with their trident. The same way years ago people would say they received the Medal of Honor. We're going to be talking about this and the notion of truth and lies and stolen valor on this, Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
It's Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. This is Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios, here's Lionel.
What is this? It's a chicken or it's a pigeon. I don't know what it is. It's one of those things where, what the hell is that noise? Sounded good at the time. See, I listened too carefully. By the way, just now there was I don't know if you probably didn't hear, but we have these public service announcements, which are very good. One is, don't text and drive. Don't text and drive. You're going to be distracted. Good idea. Good idea. Except, have you looked at most dashboards today? Especially if you have Waze or Google Maps or some type of GPS and you've got that and all kinds of graphs and lights. And that's not going to distract you. That's not going to distract you. You can also talk on the phone. You can talk on a speaker. That's not going to distract you. Being in a conversation with somebody, that's okay as long as you're not holding it in your hand. Does that make any sense to you? One time, when I was a prosecutor, we would have traffic duty, and we only handled the criminal cases, so we would get to hear all of the civil infraction cases, all of the cases involving speeding tickets and whatever. And so help me God, I should go blind if I'm lying about this. There was a fellow who was charged with driving with headphones on. And this was in the days of, Walkman. This is a long time ago. And the next person after him, the next person was a deaf person charged with speeding. And he brought his interpreter. And I said, do you see something wrong? I told my partner at the time, I said, do you see something wrong with this? If you can hear and you happen to wear headphones inside a car, which is pretty soundproof, that's no good. If you can't hear at all, that's okay. So hearing is not a problem unless you can't help it. Does that make any sense? Things just don't make any sense to me. Here's one. Drinking and driving. Don't drink and drive. We don't want you drinking and driving. Do you understand? Do not drink and drive. You understand? So why do we have parking lots at bars? Explain that one to me. I don't get that. I don't get a lot of things. Certain things. So is that the truth? I don't know. I have no idea. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. That's like ID laws, identification laws to vote. Stupidest thing I've ever heard. And why don't people want ID? So they can fraudulently vote. I love when they say, black folks can't carry an ID. Why, you can't make black folks do this? What do you mean? You can't be, because what are you saying? Well, they actually said this with a straight face. They say it with a straight face. And it's amazing. I'm saying, excuse me, what are you saying about black folks? Well, we're not really saying anything about black folks. What are you doing? What are you talking about? I told you the other day, this happened. We had this thing, my wife and I were in the kitchen of hell, the Hell's Kitchen area. And we're walking and say, hey, look at this. They've got that special duty, that special whatever that thing's called, that special election. I don't know what the hell it was. I said, let's vote. I'm going to vote no matter what. Somebody walked in. There's nobody there. Of course. And when you walk into any kind of precinct, at least here in New York, you see people sitting around. I don't know where they come from. I don't know where they get these people, but they're just like, ugh. It's like Night of the Living Dead. They're just sitting around staring at you, completely out of their minds. And it looks like they're members of a 12-step program that they haven't decided what the steps are or what the disease is, but it could be one of anything, just intemperance or intellectual and cognitive absenteeism. In any event, you walk in, there's somebody sitting there, and they point. They get a box lunch at $50, and they point to this. Okay, so I walked in, and there was this fellow sitting there. Typical lib look. There's a certain New York lib look, and I can spot him usually. You can see him. They go to the Quad. They go to the film forum. They like indie films, which I like, but they'll have a ponytail, bald head, a ponytail. They'll have a tie-dye shirt, Birkenstocks with socks, and a cloth bag from the Strand bookstore. Just dead on. So I took my license out. They said, give me the first 3 letters of your last name. I said, would you like my ID? No. First 3 letters of your last name. Okay. What's your first name? And what's your address? He goes, okay, sign here. I said, wait. I said, don't you? And I've got one of those real IDs, hologram. I mean, it's got a lot of good stuff. Don't you want to see an ID? I didn't even mean to pick a fight. He says, no. And there's nobody in there, by the way. It's my wife and me, and that's it. And he says, no. I said, wait. Don't you want the ID? Don't you want to look at it? No, it's okay. I said, what do you mean that's okay? I said, what if I just know somebody's address? And I do this all day long, and I buy their votes. I say, tell you what, I'll give you $5 and I'll vote for you. Sure. Give me your name and address, and I kind of remember if you live in a building with like 500 people, you could make a pretty penny. And he said, well, how do I know that license is legit? I said, well, first of all, it's my picture on it, number 1, even though it's kind of weird looking. Number 2, there's all kinds of holograms. It's a real ID. What do you mean, how can you tell? Well, sometimes these IDs can be fake. I said, an ID with a hologram? Look at this. He said, look, I don't want to talk politics. I said, this isn't politics. This is about safety. So anyway, I signed my name. He goes, okay. I said, that's not the way I sign my name. That's the way I sign it bent over on this. It was like a line. That's not the way I sign my name. I said, what are you, a graphologist? I couldn't believe I was telling him the truth, but they don't want to hear the truth. So just remember something. Don't ever fall for this, because I live in a world of liars. And I was also saying before, I love people who actually say that they were in the military. They were in SEAL Team 6. They have the trident, the SEAL trident, tattooed on their chest. And they never did it. And they lie. How can you lie about that? How sick is that? And they're all over the place. There's a fellow named Don Shipley, and he has a thing called Buds 138 or something from Basic Underwater Demolition / SEALs. He was a Navy SEAL. And he goes around busting people who aren't SEALs. Who in their right mind would tell people, yeah, and sometimes they'll wear a uniform. They'll put their own buttons, their own badges and chevrons, and tonight it's about the truth. What is and what isn't the truth. Let's start off with this ball of fire. Her name is Jeanette. She's from Throg's Neck. What is a throg? And I never knew it had a neck. You're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Good day.
Lionel, it's a great pleasure speaking with you. I was holding on the line after trying to get through for over an hour with Dr. Scott that I listen to all the time to let him know about a great book to read. And you too. I'm on your line. I didn't get to call you yet. Read the book that'll clarify everything, written by Science and Health. Supplemental with Science and Fake Experimental Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker, President of Massachusetts Metaphysical College and Pastor Emeritus Office, First Church of Christ Scientists, Boston, Massachusetts.
Is this Mary Baker Eddy?
Mary Baker
Eddy.
Eddy.
Is she the founder? Is she the founder of Christian Science?
Right. Published by the trustees under the will of Mary Baker Eddy.
Now stop for a second.
Boston,
Stop for a second.
USA,
Stop for a second. Stop for a second. She's a Christian. She founded Christian Science?
No, what goes on is that there's underwriters.
No, wait, stop for a second. Wait. Mary, hang on. Mary Baker Eddy.
Mary Baker G, like go, Eddy.
Right. Mary Baker Eddy, she died in 1910.
No, wait a minute. I apologize. Eddy. E-D-D-Y.
That's Eddy.
Eddy.
No, Eddy. Two D's is a lowercase, is a soft E. Mary Baker Eddy.
Right. It's used, M, B, and E are capitalized because capitalization and lowercase separates a lot of things pertaining to fraud. Now, listen to this.
Now, let me before we begin, just to give you, she was an American religious leader. In 1879, she founded the Church of Christ Scientists.
No, it goes way back to the 15th century, and it was.
Let me stop you right there, and I want you to listen to me very, very, very carefully, like your life depended on it.
Knocked out and beat up over here.
Mary Baker Eddy, in 1879, founded the Christian Scientist Church. Okay? This is who this is. She died in 1910. Mary Baker Eddy. Okay? That's who we're talking about. You're telling me.
Roman numbers says John, VII. That's number 7. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8.
What is number 8? What is number 8?
Roman numbers are used.
No.
So
what is first? I want you to answer me a question, and I'm not gonna. I don't care if I stay here till 7 a.m. Mary Baker Eddy, the woman whom you refer to, was the woman who, in 1879, founded the Christian Scientist Church. Correct?
She really didn't find it. Now check this out. Her name.
I'm not done yet. I'm reading right now. She founded. Let me try this again. I don't care if I'm here until a week from now. You're going to answer my question. She founded the Church of Christ Science, the mother church of the Christian Science movement. She also founded the Christian Science Monitor, 3 religious magazines. Mary Baker Eddy, who died in 1910. Isn't it true? This is the same woman we are talking about. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no?
I don't know if I want to answer that question.
Okay, that's it. Have a nice day. Don't ever change. If you can't answer who I'm talking about, because this kills me. Did you hear this? Let me make sure you understood this. I am supposed to answer. This is the book that answers everything. And she starts off by saying, I was waiting to get on to Dr. Sky's show, which I understand. There were plenty of lines open. I'm watching. I'm looking at the same monitor. I don't know where you were, but that's okay. Maybe nobody wanted to take your call in any event. But because I couldn't get into that show, I'm going to call this show. And I'm going to tell you about this book on science, or whatever it is, everything you need to know, written by the woman who invented or discovered, or whatever you want to call it, Christian Science in 1879. You see anything odd about that? I'm going to find everything I need to know about science today. Not only that, we can't even identify who we're talking about. It's a very simple thing. D. Romans 7. This is why I love this show. I love this. It was 2:35 in the morning, Eastern time, when this very nice woman called up, and we can't even get past who or whom we're speaking of. Don't you love that? And you wonder what's wrong with this country. I can't even identify the person we're talking about. Any event, John in New Jersey. John, you're on another side of midnight. John, and if you bring up any person and you cannot identify that person, no, it's him. Live? No, John, you're not. Would you like to go on next? What would you like to talk to Lionel about?
Oh my God, that woman! I need a mental bath after that.
Can
I was
you
going to drive wherever you are to give you a Xanax and a glass of wine.
Can you believe?
I cannot believe the confusion. It's very sad, Michael.
Anyway, talk to me, sad. John. Talk to me.
Well, that's one of the reasons. Well, hey, I've been hearing you calling for me. This is our first date, Lionel. My name is John. People call me Brother John in New Jersey.
Excuse me. Stop right now. I hate to do it to you as well. You've heard me calling for you. Yes,
in metaphorically. You know, I've listened to the show. I wind up because of many health issues and things, struggles in this world between the battle of God and the devil. You know, I've suffered many.
What do you mean? What does that mean? What is a battle between God and the devil? Expand upon that.
Look, all of it. Well, first of all, I wanted to say to you why there's a parking lot at a bar for designated drivers. But I just would throw that in there.
No, that's not true. That's not true. That's really not the answer.
I know
that's an attempt at humor. Because John, somebody along the way said, "You're funny," and you never forgot that. Now, let me ask you something. Before we get in, tell me about. Hang on a second. Listen to me. I'm in control.
Yes, sir.
But by the way, we have this phone system where we cannot both talk at the same time, and it's irritating, and I apologize. What is your battle between God and the devil? Explain that to me.
Well, what I wanted to really begin with is I've listened to you many times in putting out.
Are you going to answer me my question about God and the devil?
Well, the God and the devil is the primary conflict. In Genesis 3:15, we find something called Genesis 3:15.
You're telling me right now at 2:40 in the morning, Sunday morning, right now, you're battling between God and the devil as we speak now. Now, I'm asking you a question. Let me finish. Let me finish. I'm not asking, give me the Bible source. Give me the biblical reference. No. I asked you, tell me the battle you're going through now, without reference to the Talmud or anything else. What is the battle you're going through now? Tell me.
Well, I've been called by God since a child. I've suffered. Yeah.
Why is he called? What has God called you?
He's called me to follow him, to be married to him, to be united to him, to come into union, to find completion through him.
Since
through my
you were
early
a child?
days as a Catholic, and then my transition into being a born-again Christian, which can also be a delusion. It can be
wait a minute.
It can be misguided. And
wait a minute.
I wanted to tell you is that God has spoken to me, and you had asked that many months ago. You said, anybody, somebody called in, but at the time I wasn't feeling very well, and I wanted. Of course,
you're in a battle.
I'm kind of referring to.
I want to ask you a question. You were a Catholic, a Christian, believer in God, Jesus, the Trinity, other aspects as well, and you said, "No, I want to go one step further. I want to be born again." Weren't you born the first time? What does that mean, born again? You were baptized. What does that mean?
I don't believe in being... the born again is the misfortunate translation.
Why'd you say it?
Many times it puts people off because when Christians,
But why did you say it
the
then?
whole born again movement, which I was swept up in the 70s.
So wait a minute.
I'm 75 years old. Yeah.
Why did you say it? If you don't believe in it, and if it puts people off, you said I was called. I was a Catholic.
I said I was.
You said you were a Catholic. Wait a minute. Said you were Catholic, and then you were born again. So later on, are you still born again?
No, I don't use that term because it's misleading.
You're not born again anymore? Wait a minute. You're not born again?
No.
Did they reverse the procedure? What happened?
Well, no. In a sense, we're born again. But the truth is that word in Greek, when Jesus was talking to Nicodemus, is better translated born from above.
Okay, I want to stop right there. You're missing my point. You said, I was born again. My question is, again, are you not born again anymore?
No,
you said you were.
I was born again in terms of following that movement, which says, yes, people define you. What are you? Well, I'm a born again Christian. And what I'm trying to say.
So born again to you merely means the label you use, not the actual process of actually being born again or seeking redemption.
I did seek redemption. The label is what I've gotten rid of, not the experience.
Why weren't you? But why is it you were born again? The Bible says very clearly that in order for you to achieve the kingdom, you must be baptized. You must be born of not your nascent
of water and the
earthborn.
Spirit. Yes, of water.
So
and
what's
the Spirit,
the problem with the term born again? I don't understand that.
Well, I've been a pastor, an apostle, a worship leader. I've been a teacher, Bible teacher. I study Hebrew and Greek. And I do mostly counseling. I did primal therapy for many years.
I didn't ask you that. I said, what's wrong with the term born again?
Well, I'm trying to tell you is that many Christians are misled because they'll have an experience with Christ. We'll call it born again. And to a certain extent, you could. But what happens when they find out that their old nature, they're ugly, they're ugly. They're fat, they're still fat. They don't change. It doesn't change your physical nature. But it's many times preached that it would.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that somebody actually believed and somebody told you that when you're born again, it will change your physical nature? Physically, you will change after baptism?
Oh, yeah. Well,
I've never heard that ever.
Well, in nuances, like, since you're filled with God's Spirit, you'll look better, you'll have a glow, you'll have a smile. I'm, a little bit facetious about that. But the point being is that we have the natural man and we have the spiritual man. And what I've found, which I wanted to share with you, is that because of the great losses in my life, we lost our 19-year-old daughter in an accident in the Garden State Park.
I'm sorry about that.
In 2002. And my wife died 3 years later of a broken heart and lymphoma. And
I'm so sorry.
The reason she died is because she had a kind of a simplistic faith that God was going to be like a Santa Claus or like a protector. And she said it once, she said it 1,000 times. Where was my father, my heavenly Father, protecting my daughter at 19, the most beautiful girl you ever met in your life? Biggest funeral I've ever been to. She affected more people. I'm 75. I still have to catch up with her. And I actually was moved to speak at her funeral where there were thousands. And I actually brought a message that God is love at her funeral.
Do you think do you think that God or that your wife contracted lymphoma because of a broken heart or because she has cancer?
Yes, it's definitely definitely. She
wait a minute. You think that lymphoma? Wait a minute.
Yes.
I'm finding this fascinating. I
thought you would, Lionel. I thought you would
No, wait. I'm saying, you're saying that she contracted cancer, metastatic or a cancer, a neoplasm or whatever the particular initial form was. Not because of the usual forms, either because of metastasis or cell mutation or environmental or genetic, but because of a broken heart. That was the manifestation of the broken heart, was a lymphoma.
Guilt. Because she had guilt also.
causes
I'm not
cellular.
one.
Wait a minute.
We know
You're
that.
saying that guilt causes cellular division to like this out of control chain reaction,
absolutely.
which is cancer.
Any studies on cancer, attitude, rebellion, when you have indecision, when you have deep depression.
I've never heard how indecision can cause. I've never heard how indecision can cause cancer.
Look, everything is psychosomatic, not in the sense that it's in your mind. It's psychosomatic means there is this balance between your brain and your body.
Everything is psychosomatic. Everything.
Yeah, because the psyche is your soul. It's your will, emotion, and
so
your brain.
So if you were to go
body.
out there and you have a propensity, if you have the BRCA1 or 2 gene, if you have a genetic predisposition, if you're involved in something environmental, where let's say you're immersed in toxins, or if you are a smoker or you live a bad lifestyle, what causes that cancer are none of the foregoing, but your mind. Where if somebody has a different mind,
you're twisting my words.
You said everything is psychosomatic. Everything
is psychosomatic because psycho refers to your mind.
No.
Psychology.
I'm not asking you to define it. I'm not asking you to define the word psychosomatic.
You are kind of you're not understanding what I'm saying.
No.
I'm not a
you
fool
said.
That
excuse
doesn't
me.
Understand.
No. If you said everything. People don't get cancer because of environment. People don't get cancer because of a genetic predisposition. They get cancer because of something that is psychosomatic. It is attitudinal. It's the way they think. That's what causes it. If you think differently, you won't get cancer no matter what you do, because your brain will protect you. It is that vaccination, so to speak. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I don't know why you're being a little prickly. I don't know
because
why.
You said because you said everything
is. There's many causes. It's a disruption, a rebellion in the body cancer. Of course, I had colon cancer. I had Hodgkin's disease at 25 years old. Where I got 50
and that
radiation.
Was because of a rebellion.
I'm not saying it. You're taking what I say and you're.
I'm listening to it.
It could. I'm saying these emotions can. I was a primal therapist. We're dealing with deep-seated emotions that tear
What is
people.
primal? What is primal therapy? What is that?
You've never heard of primal therapy? Primal scream?
No, I want
therapy?
you to tell me what it. I want you to tell me what it is. What is primal therapy? I've heard of primal scream.
Therapy, yes, primal therapy is basically where we guide somebody into their past where they've had usually a trauma that they've hidden and repressed. And because they repressed it,
how early can you begin this? At what age can you say, if somebody said to you, talk to my son, he's 5, you can say, nah, he's too young. He hasn't lived yet. Can you deal with children, or you have to be at least 30?
No, we don't. I've never dealt with children. I've dealt more with people, older people. We actually would administer an MMPI to them. We would make sure that they were sound mentally. But the whole point is...
And MMPI, by the way, is used to determine, for the most part, psychopathy and other different things. Well, the Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory is not going to tell whether somebody is mentally ill.
It's not the point. The point is that legally we had to give that, because when you do therapy with people, sometimes you go so deep, you don't want to have somebody that's schizophrenic or has a leaning, because what we do is really only allow the person to feel what they were afraid to feel when they were a child. We don't.
But what does the MMPI do? That's used, for example, to help diagnose mental health conditions, or it helps you to select.
Is that, when I studied primal therapy, and there were certifications and things, and I did many, many hundreds of hours of it myself, and it was very beneficial to me, because it allows you to bring up repressed feelings that can cause, and many times do cause, physical problems.
Well, listen, John, I tell you what, I appreciate this call so much. I thank you. I hope you call again. I hope people never take offense when I ask you what you're saying. When I ask you, say, wait a minute, what does that mean? Because I'm interested. When you say everything is psychosomatic, well, what does that mean? Well, it's the psyche. Well, what does that mean? Well, I was a primal therapist. Well, what is primal therapy? I'm never going to ever apologize for listening to you. And when you say something that intrigues me, I'm going to ask the question. It's called, by the way, listening, of which we do right here on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
All night long. This is Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Don't think this is some innocuous, 50s, 60s doo-wop stuff. This is very heavily laden with satanic references. And how do I say this? The same way people say whatever they want. I am of the belief that we will never truly understand everything there is. But I will never ever say, this is this. Everything is this. Everything is diet. Health is about attitude. Health is about exercise. Health is about breathing. Yeah, that's good. That's a part of it. It's a little bit more complicated than that. People just say things because they find that they've never really given it enough time, this thing that they're thinking of. I always wondered, does attitude change anything? Here's an experiment. I would never want to do this, but I'm curious as what it would happen. What if you took a bunch of people and you told them that they had 6 months to live, that they had the most aggressive form of whatever it was, and it wasn't true? How would they? Of course, you can't do this. It's horrible. But maybe there's a way. Maybe some people have gotten the wrong information. Maybe there's a way to find out what these people went through. If I found these people deteriorating almost to the point of they're acting as though they almost have the disease they thought they had, I would find that to be fascinating. And of course, I don't want to in any way do this. My God, I wouldn't even suggest it for a moment. But it fascinates me. Do you understand what I'm saying? It fascinates me how much of who we are and how much of how we feel and what we can do is dependent upon merely what we think. Do, for example, people who are severely schizophrenic, do they live the same amount of, in terms of longevity, do they live the same amount of time? Granted, if they don't, harm themselves or something. I wonder what that is. Where does that work? I love how also sometimes people, and I'm not suggesting John or anybody is in particular, but some people get so imbued in this. They just believe and they're off to the races. They believe in everything. They believe in not only that, but they believe in channeling and they believe in prior lives and they believe in every conceivable version of, and they start talking this stuff and this new age and whether it's astrology and the way I'm fascinated by it. I answer everything with the typical, prototypical, and usual lawyer answer to every legal question. It depends. Does attitude help? It depends. Does attitude have anything? I don't know. Maybe. Well, absolutely? No, not absolutely. It depends. Hour number 2 coming up. This is one of the most fascinating hours as we listen to what you have to say very carefully on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Brr, brr, brr.
It's Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Now to the Bernard McGurk Studios. Here's Lionel.
Alrighty, Lionel with you. That, of course, is our secret signal. It's a bird of it's like a homing pigeon. I don't know what it is, but it's the sound of our show. I don't know why, but let me make something up. You see, the bird is a spiritual nexus that I connect to, which envisions and envisages the notion of flying. And flight is escape. And as you know, it is bi-winged or bi-alar. A-L-A-R. It is an avian form of freedom. I just go on. You can just make this stuff up. You know, I was talking before to my good friend, Dr. Antoine Atwood. I said, Tony. He said, yeah. I said, Tony, don't you love when people say their name in the conversation? Let's say Bill Lee was talking and Bill says, I was talking to someone and he said, Bill. I said, what, Dave? He says, Bill, you can leave that out. I know he's talking to you and probably said your name. Why people do this, I have no idea. I like when people say, the doctor says to me, Bill, and I said, my name's not Bill. Anyway, he said, I think you've got, I want to say, well, go ahead and say it. What do you mean? Well, you just said, I want to say. Huh? You said, I want to say, well, say it. Okay, I'll say it. Why do people say that? I hate no worries. Thank you. No worries. Excuse me. May I ask you a question? Yeah. Did you think I was worried about something? No, I'm just saying that. Why? Because I'm a robot. Before it was no problem. Thank you. No problem. I also hate hey guys. Hey guys. Remember when, Erica Kirk, about 6 days after her husband was slaughtered in front of the world, she did a Zoom meeting. Hey guys. Guys, what do you guys want? Hey guys, every YouTube, every instruction, says, hey guys, here's one for you. I was explaining this to Antoine the other day. And Bill said, Bill, I said, Bill, I understand that's your name. Okay. There's a guy who is, he picks up cars. He repossesses them, and he has a device which he uses to pick up cars. I'll get you his name; it doesn't matter. Anyway, but he's an African-American feller, and he is like the most. So I think some of these people are contrived, or he's one of the most soulful. He goes, "Hey man." He goes, no, don't take my car. And he's connecting it and he's putting the tires on and the bar goes, no, man, no. He goes, hey, man. What? And he soothes him. Hey, man, you just call the place up right now. They'll take care of it. No, my stuff's inside. I'm going to take my kids to school. Hey, man. And I'm watching this. I'm thinking, why am I watching? I don't know who I'm rooting for. Am I rooting for this guy? That guy? I don't know who I'm rooting for. And so help me, Tony and Bill. There was a guy getting arrested in another one of my videos. This is what I watch. I don't watch mainstream media. I watch arrest videos under a variety of wonderful channels. This guy said, bruh, so help me God, 100 times. Easy. During the arrest. Bruh, come on, bruh. Hey, bruh, not bro, not brother, bruh. It was over and over. You're thinking to yourself, no, I'm telling you, because I couldn't count them all, but I'm trying to do 10 seconds and extrapolate. That's what I want to do. It was phenomenal, phenomenally fascinating. I love language. And I love how we use different phrases. And I love the way we went from no problem, thank you. They used to say you're welcome, no problem. Oh, I'm glad it's not a problem. To no worries, no worries. I'm also tired of awesome. I think we're a little bit done with that. Awesome involves, it's a very powerful word. To be in awe of something means you are gobsmacked, your jaw drops. If you see God, I think that would be awesome. You would be filled with awe. A while back, everything was hilarious. And Louis C.K. did one of the best. That's hilarious. Once a word becomes popular, once a phrase, it's all over the place. Once articles of clothing. Why are inappropriate adaptations of yoga pants? Where did this come from? Where did pajamas? Tony was talking about his mother, and he went on a plane trip, and he got off at some place in Houston or Texas or something, and he saw these people walking around, zombies out of bed, walking around saying, what is happening? You see, if ever society completely collapses, which it will sooner than you think, there will be little signs of such. There will be signs of such, and it will absolutely astound you. And you will say, you know what? He mentioned that between the pigeon calls and the like. Now, before we go back to your phones and your calls and your inability sometimes to convey the slightest of ideas, and I kid, of course, have you ever heard about the Philadelphia experiment? Did you ever hear about this one? Sometimes I think everybody knows these things, but the Philadelphia experiment is one of those stories that lives right kind of on the edge between maybe wartime rumor and full-blown lore. Not conspiracy lore, but just lore. And here's the claim, and I'm going to strip it clean of all kinds of Hollywood gloss and the like. In 1943, at the height of World War II, the U.S. Navy supposedly, or as some people say, supposedly, conducted a top-secret experiment at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The goal? To make a destroyer escort the USS Eldridge invisible to enemy radar. But according to the story, things didn't stop at radar invisibility. Oh, no. Witnesses claim the ship literally vanished from sight in a greenish haze, then reappeared miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, then snapped back to Philadelphia. And this is where it gets wild, as if that wasn't enough. Some version of this say the crew suffered horrific side effects. Sailors fused into the ship's metal structure. Others were driven insane. Some supposedly phased in and out of reality. And what's worse, some went into program directing at major market talk radio shows. Just saying. Now, before we go, I love the way they say this. Some people refer to this as full late night radio. It's always how they always think that late night radio is filled with crazy people. Well, maybe they got a point. Anyway, they claim there is no credible evidence that the experiment ever happened, as described, and the Navy has consistently denied it, as they are wont to do. But most historians, I guess, trace the story back to a man named Carl Meredith Allen, who sent letters in the 50s claiming insider knowledge. And the myth is interesting because there were real-time technologies that could have, sparked confusion. Degaussing, reducing a ship's magnetic structure to avoid mines, experimental radar countermeasures, maybe classified naval projects of some sort that people didn't understand. But the bottom line is, this is one of those stories that people will talk about repeatedly. and they will never let it go. Mr. Atwood, if you could, my friend, give me a new code, I would most appreciate it. Thanking you, of course, for not what you do, but what you appear to do. I love stories like this because there's always a kernel of truth. And what you're finding now is what people do is they find ways to immediately debunk what you're saying. They try to debunk because it can't be. It can't be. Thank God people like that weren't around in the days of biblical observations. We would have no faith. It took a lot for people to come up with stories of seeing Jesus after resurrections and the like. It's very, very serious. Very, very serious. And I'm not necessarily saying that I believe in this per se, but what I do think is I don't necessarily immediately debunk it. Some people also, like some of our callers, will say things without explaining anything involving context and the like. So let's go back to the phones, back to what I call fun, with your thoughts and questions. Remember, everything is completely open for review. Let's go to Holly in Manhattan. Holly, you're on another side of midnight
there.
with Lionel.
Hi there.
Hello,
Hi there.
Holly.
Hi there. I think your bird is actually the great horned owl.
Why do you say that?
That sounds more like a pigeon, but there's another. You played the second part of their call. Part of it sounds like that. The females sound like that when they're mating, but
now hang on a second.
Common,
just 1 second. They're going to get to the bottom of this. Mr. Lee, could we play the sound the reference sound, which is part of I don't know if you can do this. I don't want to spring this on you, but which is part of the intro, that strange bird, the sound. Again, I don't want to spring this on you, but if there's a way, because I want to get to the bottom of this. And I think Holly knows something. I think she's talking about horny owls, something along those lines. Holly,
no.
are you expert in this? Are you an ornithologist?
I took some ornithology classes, and I actually I am a birder, so I know a little bit.
You're a birder. What is a birder?
Yeah, a person who pursues in more than just a passing informational study about the birds in your environment. Yeah. And I have friends that have gone all over the world. I had a friend that went to Japan in the middle of winter to look at these migrating birds that come from a certain part of the Soviet Union to Japan.
That is fascinating. Now,
I've never done that, but I've done a lot of birding.
How many owls and birds have you listened to for comparison purposes? And you can tell a bird in a mating cycle, let's say an aroused owl versus somebody who is more sated. How do you know this?
There are different recordings. I will refer you to the Cornell School in Ithaca, New York. They have a huge ornithology department, and they have extensive recordings, and you can listen to them on their website, and you can also buy the recordings and listen to them and study them in their own environments. Yes, and birds have different mating calls and different calls depending on whether they're in danger or they are in mating cycles, and whether they're male or female. And,
is there any bird sound that you can replicate now for us? Anything that comes to mind that you can that you're pretty good at?
One of my favorite birds is the great barred owl. I actually saw one in Central Park about 10 years ago, and
barn owl.
Barred, Barred.
Oh,
barred owl, and
How does that sound?
Okay, he sings a song that goes. He sings he's the five hooter. He goes, hoo, 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 hoo. And then he finishes off with "Who cooks for you?" That's his call.
Who cooks for you?
Who cooks
for
you?
So you're saying a five hooter A 5-footer. Listen, Holly, I want to thank you for that, and I'm never going to forget.
Our owl is not. It's the horned owl, HORNED, and he is the largest.
Holly, I must run. I thank you for this. I hate. The clock is my enemy. Thank you. Thank you. This is The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
It's Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Now, if you can find a kookaburra, my personal favorite from Australia, this is the bird you want. See, if any religious sect wants to do calls to prayer at 5 a.m, I'll fight back with my kookaburra. That is the greatest bird of them all. Leave it to, of course, Australia to even come close to that. Let's go back to the phones, back to what I call fun. Michael in Manhattan. You're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Yeah, it's an owl. When you connect the dots, you say this is the intro for Another Side of Midnight, referencing nocturnal time of day, and then you have a bird call. You put that into, you put the sound, you record the sound, you upload it into AI.
So you're thinking that maybe because of the time that somebody put a bird normally thought to be nocturnal, like an owl, you think there's a connection? I think, Michael, you're onto something. I think that is probably, and I'm going out on a limb, much like a snail darter or whatever it does. I think you're onto something. And Michael, a lot of people would say, well, no blank. But I don't say that, Michael. I appreciate that because just because something is obvious doesn't mean it's not worth speaking of. And by the way, just because something deliberately kills any comedic effect that was underlying it does not mean it's not a valid entry into the worldview or into the ken of discussion. That's excellent, Michael. Thank you.
And yes, you're more than welcome.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day, and thank you for calling. Another Side of Midnight. Isn't that something? Thank you, sir. See, you didn't. I'm telling you, Bill, Tony, there's something going on here. I like what's up. Uh-oh. There we go. That's it. That's my kookaburra. The first time I heard one of those was as a Tarzan movie. Tarzan, they threw all these animals. Remember Tarzan? Go back and watch the old Johnny Weissmuller. Just one of those things where Tarzan would go and just start slaying lions, and the Africans were always crazed. I'm not suggesting there was a racist theme there, because I think the term, sometimes the allegation is used far too much. But I don't think they had a full grip on the notion of Africanization. But this one caller says, I think it's an owl. I think maybe because it's at night. Really? Interesting. I think a chicken might work as well. Let's go to a man who goes by the name Eduardo. He's calling from a body of water called Tampa Bay. Eduardo, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Yeah. I was going to call you yesterday, but I didn't make it. But I did make it today, so I'm glad I hear it.
Now let's hear about this. You were going to call me yesterday, but you couldn't. But now you've gotten through. And that's important for people to know. Why couldn't you call in yesterday? What happened? Better have a good reason for this.
Well, I think it might be the old-fashioned sleeping. Yeah,
so you were sleeping. So you're using that old excuse, sleeping? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think it has to do with that. Yeah.
So don't make it sound like I couldn't. So don't give me this business about, well, I was going to call, but I couldn't. No, you could say I was asleep. That's okay. But you made it sound like something interrupted you, like, I had to change my transmission at 3:00 in the morning or something like that.
No,
I'm on to you, Eduardo. I'm on to you. I know what you're up to. I know this. I know these things.
Well, I was going to get into honesty here. Fidelity Investments is going to make 20,000 people go back to work in the office.
Wow.
And, there's a thing with the SNAP where, you got to work to earn your little benefit.
Gee, imagine that. Having to work. Now think about that. Having to work to receive benefits. Just the concept of that.
Is that like a bad thing nowadays? Yeah. Is that like a bad word? Apparently it is.
I think so.
I mean, I went to, check this out. When I was younger, I went to night school to finish my college degree. I did my 40 hours of work. You wouldn't do that. Nobody does that now. That'd be considered weird, I think.
So you did your work, you did your job, and then you went to night school. How many days a week?
I did the 40 hours. Yeah.
No.
Chicago.
How many days a week did you go to school?
And then and then I went to Robert Morris College and finished my bachelor's in business.
How long did you? No. How long did you go to school during the week? I know how long you worked. Did you go an hour a day, an evening, 5 days a week? I know this is a difficult question.
I was there like a couple hours. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was there a couple hours.
5 days, 5 days a week.
5 days, yep. I did my 40 hours, and then I went to, got on the L, went into downtown, because I think I was in University of Chicago, Hyde Park. Took the train and finished my my college degree, but I still did my 40 hours.
What was your degree in?
Business. Yeah, business.
Can you be more specific than business? That's like saying stuff.
Business
science.
Administration.
Okay. And do you administer businesses?
That was like in the 90s. Oh my God, that was like in the 90s.
And what did you do when you got out? What would you really be good at? Administering business? What would you do?
Yeah, I went to work for Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Really? Did your education really help at all? Did it really give you a foundation, or was it just something you had to do?
To tell you the truth, I would say it didn't. This is why I'm kind of like an advocate of trade schools, because that kind of like gives you, that zeroes on a skill where college is just getting because everybody else got it. It's like something you hang on the wall. Yeah.
Do you know that most things are a trade school? What is the worst job you ever had, Eduardo? The worst one that you never want to do ever again. In fact, it's so bad. Amnesty International would probably be against it ever being imposed upon captured terrorists. It was that bad. What was the worst thing you ever did?
Yeah, something that comes to mind would be working at Sbarro, some pizza joints.
Sbarro, which is tough. That's the opposite of a diphthong. Two consonants next to each other. Now, sometimes th like thank is easy, but Sbarro. What did you do at Sbarro?
Oh, I was in the back, in the
back
kitchen.
Not even
cleaning.
Not even. Just think about this. Not even in the front. They didn't even have you. They didn't want you even to see people. You're in the back as Sbarro.
Yeah, I was in the back. I mean,
it's bad enough being in the front. I mean, at least you could see people. You could laugh. You could see what time of day it was. But you're slinging sauce or dough in the back of this.
Right.
Did you ever nibble the food? Did you ever sample the food?
I'm sure I did.
You're sure you did? You don't remember? You really don't remember?
I don't know how many times, but I'm sure I did it once or twice. Yeah.
What would be the job?
I'm going to help myself because I like to snack at night.
What would be the job that if somebody told you you had to do it, you would rather rob than do that? What job would you never, ever even bother? You could be starving and you say, no way. What job would that be?
Cleaning. Yeah, I would say cleaning. Yeah.
You know what?
Cleaning.
You know what mine would be? Mine would be moving in New York, in Manhattan. I see these movers. There's a company called Piece of Cake. It's these pink trucks, and these people, they're all over the place, and they'll pull up and double park in in city. And by the way, the streets are already limited by virtue of the space taken up by this radical Marxist, these lunatic people who run the city. But they have to not only go, and they have to take furniture down service elevators. They got to load the truck and go back. Could take all day. I think I'd rather suck a hospital mop than do that. I just can't imagine that. I can't imagine. You know what somebody told me too, which is awful, is people who would change grease traps. They would clean grease. They would suck the grease out of, like in restaurants, the grease that accumulates. They said the smell of that is so horrible that it was worse than death. So God bless these people who do that. God bless these people. And Eduardo, what do you do now? You're a male prostitute, aren't you?
No, don't say that.
That's what I hear.
I'm an honest citizen.
What? Why is that not? I understand you're pretty doggone good. They call you El Tigre for reasons I don't want to go into. Eduardo, thank you, my friend. And thank you not for what you are, but for what you appear to be. And I mean that sincerely. Michael, on the east side, you're on another side of Midnight with Lionel.
Thank you. I have a couple of good ones for you, Lionel.
Now, wait a minute. Stop for 1 second. I want people to understand who you are. You are the king of paranomasia. You're very punny. I'm going to put you in the penitentiary. You are, some might say, laboring under the belief that you are inordinately funny and gifted comedically. I would venture to say, I think that's true. So fire away, Michael. Hit us with your best stuff.
Well, thank you for your compliments, but my sense of humility cannot accept it. However, there was a very well-educated penguin, and teachers I have 3 more to go. Teachers complimented him on his penmanship.
Oh.
Yeah, and you were talking about owls before, but I'm sorry, but it gets a little boring. I don't give a hoot.
Very good. And by the way, before you get to the third, the killer, the cleanup of this troika, this triad, this triumvirate of chortling, you said pen. You should do maybe a Fred Gwynn reference to hit to the latter syllable of penguin.
Well, I don't know about I don't know about the latter, but
or Tony Gwynn or something like that. Yes.
No.
Okay, and your third one.
I'm scared of heights, so I don't care to talk about the latter, rather the former. And,
Michael, before you suffered this serious mental breakdown, what did you do professionally? What was your job?
Well, I cleaned ducts in a restaurant, but I was not the only one there. There were several people there. So I resented when people said that I was the greaser. There were others that worked with me.
That was of good. On the fly, very good. I thought you were going to say maybe you were abducted or something like that, or maybe your abductor muscle.
On the fly. Don't say on the fly. I'm not gay.
Wow.
But,
Michael, in all candor, what did you do prior to this?
Okay.
Seriously?
Seriously, catering business.
Did you own it, or were you one of the servers?
No, you don't want to own a restaurant. You want to be catering sales.
Oh, I see. And what was the largest sales, the largest event you ever organized or sold in terms of catering? What was it?
Okay. It was 750 egg wraps for that 34th Street, 34th Street Hudson Yards a construction site.
A construction site?
Yes. So they had a celebration of what they call a topping out when they pour
yes,
the
yes. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And were these folks of
that's
Asian, of egg? It sounds like this is almost like an egg roll wrap or something, or was this a particular ethnicity?
No. First of all, I explain to clients, and then I'll get to answer your question. We do sandwiches and wraps, but we don't do hip hop.
Thank you. Michael, I'm going to let you go with that. Have a wonderful day. Don't ever change. I mean that absolutely sincerely. As you may or may not know, I'm fascinated by people's jobs. And one day I happened to be at an event, and it was kind of like a convention center. And it was a huge place. Half of the convention center was doing whatever the heck I was attending. And the other one I kind of ventured into, and it was a bridal fair. It was everything that you can do or you can have regarding weddings. And if ever there was a racket, an absolute racket, I used to think it was the funeral business. I'm sorry, with all due respect, I know there's some wonderful, they're 99.99% are wonderful people, and they serve an incredible service. But sometimes they'll hit you a little bit with some of the extra accoutrement of the death, the final goodbye, the sayonara, the denouement, the valedictory, so to speak. Anyway, when I went to this bridal shower, I was in awe. I talked to a fellow who did nothing but ice carvings. Now think about this. You've got money to burn, and you say, what am I missing? I've spent $150,000. I've got everything. What am I? I've got it. Ice carving. So you call this guy up and you give him the whatever it was, and he comes out with a chainsaw, and they showed movies of it, and he makes your particular thing, and he keeps it in this freezer, as you can imagine, and then they bring it over and they let it go, and it melts, and it costs, I don't even know how much. I was in awe. Then there was a person who, this was really interesting. I talked to a fellow who had birds, speaking of, these noises, but he had doves or something that he would let, they were homing, whatever, they would come back. They let the birds out and they came back, right? So you're there, and instead of throwing rice, you let the birds go, and anyway. And they came back. Emphasis on coming back. Well, apparently, he didn't know this, but wherever he was, there was either a nest or a group of peregrine falcons. And these falcons, as you know, travel faster than any animal on the planet. Anything. They go about 240 or so miles per hour in dives. In fact, they use the architecture of the birds to design Japanese maglev trains and the like. So anyway, he lets the birds out, and everybody looks up and they go, oh, look at that. And all of a sudden, I mean, it looked like a bunch of kamikazes. They came from nowhere and took these birds out. People were horrified. They were screaming. And I thought that was phenomenal. Then I love people who play in bands, people who have every single week, they have to play these stupid songs nobody likes so people can dance. They see drunks. They see, they see stuff that you can't even imagine. So I was talking about this, and I said, what are two of the best things? I may have told you the story, but I said, what are some of the funny things that you've seen at weddings, at receptions? And the first one was, a man who was dancing with, I'll never forget, it was the bride's father's best friend, who was like an uncle, very close to this young lady growing up. So she had a dance with the father's friend. As they were dancing, all of a sudden she feels this death grip literally on her neck, and she's wondering, what is going on here? And this guy's looking not good. He coded and he suffered a massive MI right there. Took her, he was a big man, took her down with him. I mean, his hand was around her neck and they went down, and she is prying this death grip. He's gone. So somebody is yelling, was there a doctor in the house? And I don't know if somebody was doing CPR. It didn't work. She's horrified. Her hair's messed up. He's smudged on the floor. They take her away. They drag him off with both of their legs, his legs underneath somebody's arms. They drag him off behind this, drape or this curtain area. So the band is looking at the father of the bride, who they figure, look, you're paying for this. So the father looked around and said, well, what the hell? And he kind of gave him a hit it. And they went right back into playing, and nobody missed a beat. Literally, no one. There was a death. The man met his maker right there, and nothing, like it was nothing. Then, my favorite, it was a boathouse. And there were these people it was this circular type of a configuration. And they had around the periphery votive candles. And the mother of the bride or groom or somebody was reading her speech. She was a kind of a large woman, and she had on a dress has, I don't know, synthetic chiffon, polyester, taffeta, whatever the heck you call it. And she was reading this message. Big moment of thanking everybody for coming from all over the country, blah, blah, blah. Well, apparently, she got a little too close to these candles. Now, firemen are very familiar and very attuned to the smell of any kind of smoke or burning or anything. They react differently. And sure enough, there was a fireman, a rather large man, across the dance floor, and he smelled something. He smelled this like almost chemical, because this dress is synthetic. She doesn't know it because she's reading. She's deep in thought. He looks over and he sees this flame from behind her. So he does what all good firemen do. He yells, "Get out of the way." He runs. Almost flies. Like that famous, what was it? That Gordie Hull? No, was it Bobby Orr picture where he's flying, he's airborne? Or Pete Rose flying into Carlton Fisk. Anyway, he's flying, he's airborne, takes her down, rolls her over, and starts putting out the fire, which looks like he's spanking her bottom, and he's knocking the hell out of her to put this fire out. Her hair is all discombobulated. The pins are gone. Anyway, they were trying to explain to me her look for the rest of the night. It was a bit bemused, a bit unsettled. Her hair looked like she'd been through a fight. She had no change of clothing. She's wearing this singed, you can smell that burnt kind of a thing. I love that. And I lied. One more I love. At the time of this was a fellow who called up. And by the way, there's this story that you've heard before. It's kind of it's a sort of a urban myth where supposedly, as people say, underneath the chair, there was a note that somebody had written. And the note said something to the effect of, this is here's a picture of the bride and the best man in some kind of embrace. Anyway, it never happened. But what did happen was the videographer, this was in a time when videography was pretty new, and they had their lavs on their lavalier mics, and they were mic'd up. And so he's watching and he's listening, and nobody can hear what they're saying. So the priest or the officiant, whoever it was, said, "Do you, Sarah, take whatever?" And she looked at him, looked at the bride, the groom to be, looked back at the priest or the minister, and she says, "I can't." And he said, "What do you mean you can't?" I can't. Now he's hearing this. This is the videographer. Nobody else can hear this. So he's thinking, "Oh my God, he's thinking maybe I can sell this." So he says, "Well, what do we do?" And the priest or whatever he says, "Are you sure?" And Sarah says, "Yeah." And the groom is a bit miffed. He says, "Well, why didn't you tell me this before?" Now they're trying to keep the priest or whatever trying to keep this quiet. He says, "Well, look, why don't you do this? Just go out the back and figure this out later. And if you want, maybe we can finish it up later. We don't have to have an actual ceremony, but just for the time being, you have to get off this altar because this is very strange." So she turned around crying. The husband, the groom looks both miffed, PO'd, and furious. The girl's crying. They turn around and hear that, the final version of the bridal march, and people are clapping because they don't know what just happened. And she's crying. And he looks like he wants to take a life. I love that. I love that because I've got to tell you something, and I want you to listen to me. One of the things that we do as human beings, which I love, are two things somewhat similar: funerals and weddings. And sometimes there was a time when I would refer to one as the other. I would refer to all weddings as funerals. I would say, when the wedding, I don't know if this was Freudian. I think marriage is a wonderful institution. I'm the luckiest man in the world. And for most people, it is exactly that. However, there are some people who never should be allowed to get married. There are some people who are not organically able to get married. And I never thought this. I remember Bill and Tony, maybe you remember this, but when you were taking driver's ed, remember the last session that would show you this video, like Blood on the Highway or something, 50s, it's black and white, really old, but these horrible, disastrous death, people, decapitated, to show you that driving can be very dangerous. I believe that before anybody gets a marriage license, they must go into a room and see either Fatal Attraction, War of the Roses, something to wipe that stupid pie in the sky look on each other's faces, because I'm telling you, remember, 4% in some cases, all these people stood in front of the world and said, "Oh yeah, forever and ever." And it all ended in a twisted dream, the Hindenburg, a fiery disaster of broken dreams and scotched futures. How about that? This is Another Side of Midnight. And this
all night long. This is Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
The funniest call, I think, tonight, and this is tough to say, was someone who said, I think maybe perhaps it was an owl, because this is a show late at night or in the morning. And I think maybe, yes. And there you have it. So I'm thinking to myself, okay. And he was very serious. Very, very serious. Okay, my friends. Now, as you know, speaking the truth, I'm going to suggest something to you that, especially in the New York area, this is not something that anybody wants to even suggest, but I want to posit this, and then we'll consider maybe the next hour, perhaps going through this. There is the front page or the front cover of the New York Post, which, by the way, I don't get. I don't see these actual papers. I don't see them anywhere. I just don't. But it says Jailhouse Croc. Albany lefties' parole reforms would spring New York's worst killers. And there is a picture. There is a picture of David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. Now, I'm going to suggest something to you, and I hope nobody takes offense at this, because this was something which is very, very serious and a terrible, terrible part of New York history. But there's a lot of folks out there, more than you think, who aren't necessarily sure that this guy acted alone or even did it. That there's some suggestions, as an old dear friend of mine, Maury Terry, suggested that he was a patsy. That, believe it or not, it was suggested that from the book The Ultimate Evil, and Berkowitz's own later prison statements to Maury Terry, that David Berkowitz never personally killed anyone as the son of Sam. He was a low-level cult recruit, it is alleged, and a convenient patsy who took the full blame for a series of ritualistic shootings carried out by a larger satanic network operating in New York in 1976 through 1977. And one of the things that people must recognize is that when you have a number of people who made their careers and retired and were known for bringing in this, let's face it, there was a sigh of relief. People who pretty much did a case closed, people who received promotions in the city, yay, It doesn't seem too far-fetched for people being, rather reluctant to do anything to dispel or reroute or redirect that particular way of thinking. Is there anyone within the sound of my voice who shares that? The same reason that many people that I know, are involving themselves in the belief system, which is very critical, that perhaps Tyler Robinson was not necessarily the shooter of Charlie Kirk. Now, when you say this, people go bananas. But the evidence is showing more than you can imagine how incredibly tenuous this is. We'll talk about that and others. 800-848-9222 as we enter the third and the final hour of what has been one of the most fascinating shows in recorded history. Not this one, but War of the Worlds. I'm just kidding. More coming up on the other side of midnight with Lionel.
Roger Stone here. Every day you wait, your money loses value, but gold and silver don't follow those same rules. American Sovereign Bullion gives you access to a nationwide wholesaler network, helping you secure aggressive pricing on real physical metals. Call 844-272-2428 now to get your free gold and silver guide to learn how to protect your wealth with physical gold and silver, delivered right to your door or with a gold IRA. Visit asbgold.com. That's asbgold.com for your free gold and silver guide today.
It's Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Now to the Bernard McGurk Studios. Here's Lionel.
Alrighty, Lionel with you, and this is Another side of midnight. Our number is 800-848-9222. Front page of today's New York Post is a picture of David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, the putative son of Sam, the alleged, the agreed to son of Sam. And when I say this to people, they immediately say, what do you mean the agreed to? Isn't it axiomatic? Isn't it absolute? To say, well, yeah, I guess, sort of, maybe. But what do you mean? Well, you see, don't forget what Tolstoy said one time, history would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. And if anybody spends any amount of time, as I have, in investigating the case going on right now with Tyler Robinson, the alleged, again, putative murder of Charlie Kirk, it is replete, absolutely chock full of inconsistencies and glaring impossibilities that you can't even believe. So the argument that is interesting is from a friend of mine, the late Maury Terry, who wrote this groundbreaking investigation called The Ultimate Evil. It was based on that and also Berkowitz's own later prison statements to Maury Terry. In fact, I believe it was on Netflix or something where they had this documentary. David Berkowitz, it is believed that his advance never personally killed anyone as the son of Sam. He was a low-level cult recruit and convenient patsy, as was stated, who took the full blame for a series of ritualistic shootings carried out by a larger satanic network operating in New York. Now, here's the theory behind it. And by the way, nobody will ever advance this because this, as you know, goes against the entire story. The first position is that Berkowitz himself repeatedly said he didn't pull the trigger in most or possibly all of the attacks. In multiple interviews with Maury Terry, Berkowitz admitted he was present at every Son of Sam shooting, but explicitly stated he was not the gunman in all of them. He described his role as a scout, a lookout, a driver, or minor player in a team operation. He told Maury Terry that he only fired in a couple of instances, most consistently naming the Donna Lauria shooting and perhaps one or two others, while other cult members, specifically the Carr brothers, were the actual triggermen for the rest. In one account, he even said the killings of some victims were team efforts and that he was merely a supporting player. Now, if the man convicted of the murders is on record saying, I did not pull the trigger at every single one of them and I didn't do it at all, that alone, one would think, would logically demolish the lone gunman myth that the NYPD advanced to the public. Remember, this is what is out there. The second point is that eyewitnesses' descriptions and composite sketches never match Berkowitz across the board. Multiple crime scenes produce wildly inconsistent descriptions of the shooter. Some witnesses described a taller, thinner man with different hair. One composite sketch was an almost perfect match for John Carr, one of the sons of Sam in Maury Terry's theory, not Berkowitz. Survivors and bystanders repeatedly gave details that did not fit the short, stocky, curly-haired Berkowitz the police eventually arrested. And if one man was doing all of the shooting, the eyewitnesses and their evidence, rather, should have been consistent. And if it wasn't, because multiple people were involved in different aspects of it, that takes into account different things. Now, the third point is the Carr brothers, the real sons of Sam, as Maury Terry has advanced, were the actual shooters, and both died under highly suspicious circumstances right after the crimes. So John and Michael Carr, sons of the man whose dog Berkowitz famously named, were deeply tied to the same Yonkers satanic circle that Berkowitz later named Terry's evidence showed. John Carr closely matched a key composite sketch. Both brothers had occult connections and were linked to the cult that Berkowitz had described. John Carr was found shot dead in North Dakota in 1978, ruled a, quote, suicide, but full of red flags, it is alleged. Michael Carr died in a suspicious car crash in 1978. And Maury Terry documented that Berkowitz explicitly confirmed to him that the Carrs were active shooters in several of them. Now, the entire operation, he said, was a satanic cult hit squad, not the random acts of a lone demon-possessed postal worker. It was alleged that the NYPD needed a quick arrest, as you can imagine, which is sometimes the case. But probably one of the most incredibly fascinating pieces that I found thoroughly just riveting was if you look at the actual description, the writing that both Jimmy Breslin looked at and others showed a very distinct, florid, very elaborate, almost elegant writing and printing style. Berkowitz, if you look at his actual usual signature and writing style, the two couldn't be more different. So what happens is, remember, history would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. The number of people, the number of motivations, and by the way, I'm not suggesting any kind of complicity or any kind of wrongdoing. This is a theory that was advanced. But whether it's Sam Shepard, whether it's BTK, OJ, now they're suggesting there was that there was a, quote, suicide note being passed around regarding Epstein. It is incumbent upon us to ask the questions that people find fascinating. Let's go back to the phones, back to what I call fun. Your thoughts and comments in this third and final hour of Another Side of Midnight. Let's go to Roberta in Brooklyn. Roberta, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Well, Lionel, listen, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want the truth, because you talked about the truth this evening. Now, you started your program talking about transgenders and alternate lifestyles in the schools, and I want to know...
I did?
What prompts, incites, provokes? I'm sorry, I'm an old lady. Maybe those are the wrong words to use.
No.
What makes these semi-coherent people call you after your monologue about horned owls, psychosomatic something, and the glow of the Holy Spirit comes upon you, which had absolutely nothing to do with what you were talking about. So my question to you is, and I want the truth, what makes these people call you with these stories? What is it about you? Because I must be one of them. I'm calling you, right? Tell me,
Roberta,
what it is.
Roberta, I have got to tell you something.
Yes.
I am fascinated by it. And what bothers me, but what I find even more fascinating, sometimes somebody will say something. And it never ceases to amaze me. I will start off with something I think is so interesting. And then somebody may say something and it goes off into a tangential veering into some area. Okay. But what is the most interesting is when I ask people to explain what they're saying, they get
and
flummoxed.
Don't you dare ask me that. Go ahead. Don't you dare.
Well, when somebody says,
I'm 85, don't you dare. Go ahead.
When somebody says I was a primal therapist, I go, well, what is that?
That's the guy I was talking about.
I don't know. And they get upset. It's like, well, you said it. Then somebody said that all cancers, all sickness is psychosomatic. Yes. I said, so are you saying that people, if we could somehow work on the mind, we could get rid of cancer? Well, that's not what I said. That's precisely what you said.
I know.
Yes.
Let me ask you, what prompts, so after a call like that, you get another call talking about a horned owl? Why? Why?
Because I think two things. Number one, people would say, I have no ability to answer what you're saying. Either the subject bores me or I don't know what it is, but I do know about horned owls, or I do know, but the favorite, but Roberta, my favorite was the caller
The
who
truth?
said,
Go ahead. Hit me with it.
the one who said, I think I know why they might have an owl. See, because your show is like late night, early morning. I said, he actually figured that out and wanted to let me know. Phenomenal.
Well,
Phenomenal.
I have to tell you, I don't know what I enjoy more, listening to you or your callers. I don't know what and I'm still waiting.
I'll tell you what
I
enjoy.
What the lion said to the ladies. Remember.
Well, you're still worrying about that.
We haven't heard about that yet. So.
What I enjoy is you, Roberta, and I thank you, dear lady.
Thank you so much.
Please call me again. You are a delight. Let's go to James in Cincinnati. You're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Lionel, you got some fabulous stories, and you tell it so eloquently, too.
Thank you.
I was a volunteer fireman, and I'll tell you, a lot of firemen would have really enjoyed that wedding, putting that dress out.
I knew that. In fact, I find firemen is such a fascinating, wonderful, wonderful profession where everybody is always happy to see you. Nobody looks in the rearview mirror and says, damn it. What is it? That's a fireman. No, you're always like, get out of the way. Let them by. They're helping someone.
How true. And he probably got a nickname, Spanky, back there at the firehouse, because firemen love to talk. We absolutely
Very
love
good.
to talk.
James, did you ever have any close calls as a fireman?
Not really. Not really. Not myself. I didn't have any super enjoyable ones like that one too. But you're right. We have a sixth sense, about smoke. It's funny.
Well, what's
firemen
interesting.
Smoke.
Listen to this. A friend of mine was a surgeon before he retired, and he was doing something involving something urological. I forget what it was. And he had this fireman who was paralyzed from the waist down. And my friend, the physician or the surgeon, said, "Are you sure you can feel nothing?" He says, "Yes." He goes, No. Are you really sure? Because I don't have an anesthesiologist here and I feel kind of strange. He goes, No, I can't. He goes, okay, fine. So he had the wand in his hand that he was used to cauterize or whatever it was. Though it was kind of a tight area. There were drapes that somehow he swung around and the cauterizing wand hit the drapes. So he says, just now, say, what is that? What's that smell? He goes, oh, I'm sorry. And it wasn't a fire. And he just put it out, as you can imagine, during your surgery. And the fireman says, leave it to me to be the only fireman here. And I can't leave because he's paralyzed. But he explained to my friend, he said, this is something that you've spent your entire life. It's in your soul. It's in your nose. It's in your clothes. It's a sign that something very, very bad is potentially happening. And while everybody runs from a fire, firemen run towards. God bless you. God bless you. I'm telling you.
Yes. Great show. It's a full moon also
Thank you,
tonight.
my friend. Pardon me? Oh, it is. Well, you know what? It's always a full moon, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that immensely. You know what? I'm very, very, and thank you, James. I'm also impressed with people like fire marshals, people who are arson investigators. I've got a friend of mine who was one of the greatest FDNY has ever produced, Jimmy Kelty, who is just a genius. And these are the folks who come in after the fact and they look and they're trying to improve arson. And it is science and gut instinct and sheer brilliance. Our number is 800-848-9222. This is Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
It's Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Our number is 800-848-9222. Let's go back to the phones. Your thoughts, your incredible comments. Jay in New Jersey, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Lionel, good evening, sir. Always a pleasure talking to you, and just
Indeed,
wanted to
sir.
go down a real quick rabbit hole with you.
Please.
I just am so excited to share this. So I have a bunch of friends. We're intellectual, generally speaking, and we like to go down internet rabbit holes. And when we get together, we talk about them. 4 years ago, and by the way, this is based on a conspiracy that's happening now. So 4 years ago, I went down a rabbit hole about fusion at the United States and how we're progressing. And there's a joke that, fusion's always 40 years away, but finally we're making some progress. There were some videos that I watched that really were promising.
You're talking nuclear fusion versus fission, right? Nuclear fusion.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yes, sir. The ability to extract a lifetime supply of energy from 1 barrel of water per human being on the planet, which is just, it's an amazing technology, zero impact to the environment. And we're making progress in the United States. Up until now, just to be brief, there's a tokamak is a type of fusion that they've been working on, and they're making incremental progress. All of a sudden, because of some new technologies, including better magnets, because fusion needs to contain material at hundreds of millions of degrees centigrade, which nothing can contain, so you have to do it with magnets. Recent developments made it look like it was promising. And I was excited to tell my friends 2 or 3 years ago about how, hey, man, we're getting really close now. And we were talking about this, and very exciting thing. And this was a little while ago. And then all of a sudden, Lionel, last year, this guy, Nuno Lauriero at MIT, gets murdered. And who is he? He's the head of fusion. He's the head of fusion and plasma research at MIT, who happened to be the guy that I was talking to my friends about, and how he's getting very close to fusion. And previous to this murder, I was telling my friends, it's insane how this is going to change the world's economy, because it'll basically make electricity too cheap to meter. Once we actually get fusion, what'll happen is that we'll be able to generate energy from basically seawater, and because of that, it'll get to a point where it just won't make sense to even energy. Just all electric cars, everything, electricity will just be basically free, and it's going to be a major.
Sounds
impact,
like Tesla.
Good impact. Exactly. Well, Tesla, exactly, or anything else electricity based. All our heating.
No,
and
but
our
I'm saying,
houses,
but look what happened to him because of his fight with Westinghouse, and had Tesla was saying, "I want to make this free. I'm going to be able to grab energy from the environment." They go, we'll see about that.
So here's the interesting thing. So we were excited about this. All of a sudden, this guy dies. And I was like, this was 2 years ago. I was, something smells fishy here, really fishy. So, and because, how did he die? He died by some random homeless person who killed somebody at Brown University. You remember? He was some random guy. Killed somebody at Brown, homeless guy, killed somebody at Brown, and then went to his house and killed him, and only him. And then to add to the craziness, the person who did it, they finally cornered him. He killed himself in a warehouse in some random location in Massachusetts. Very, very bizarre why this person would kill this particular fusion, the head of fusion.
The odds of that.
Research.
The odds.
So it gets crazier, Lionel. So, this whole thing was suspicious to me, and we were talking about this. I was talking about this with my friends. We went through this whole progression of how excited we were. This was going to change the course of energy and the planet. It literally would change economics everywhere. The oil-producing countries are going to have to deal with it because all of a sudden they won't have a source of income. Saudi Arabia, Middle East, everything is going to change once fusion becomes a reality. This guy dies, and now he happens to be one of the 10 people that they're talking about in the news that are suspiciously dead because of some UFO-related something. I personally think he himself is a whole conspiracy, thing on his own. And I don't know. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this, Lionel, because I'm telling you, there is something extreme. The fact that,
right?
Yeah.
Well, let's look at it this way. First, I want you to take away murder, and let's look at the fact that we're doing drug research. Something that sounds more innocuous, and apply the same observations. If we keep noting, if we keep seeing a particular reaction in a number of patients or people who receive this particular dosage, and the same fate happens to them repeatedly in numbers that, I don't know, statistically, what is P is less than 0.05 or whatever the critical reference
P-value.
is.
Yes.
Yeah. But if it goes, and I like an old Kruskal-Wallis in any event, but if you look at this and you say, you know what, this is happening at a rate that far exceeds what we would normally believe to be random, we would be remiss. We would be negligent in not pursuing it because because remember Aaron Brockovich and Silkwood and people. Now, one of the things that people always have to look at as well is that if somebody comes up with something, what is the industry they're displacing?
Yeah.
The reason why Mike Nesmith's mother, who invented liquid paper,
whiteout,
the reason why she wasn't killed was because liquid paper did not exactly, there's not $1 billion of industry in, whiteout or whatever. Anyway, but this, what if we said, and this is why the whole anti-gravitic thing is possible. What if somebody said, we have the information to show how we can take space-time as an example, which is another different, but just, and we can use dimpled divots in this particular thing and look at what's happening with, why is Spirit Airlines going out? Why? Because of problems with oil and problem with this and Iran and that sort of thing. So anyway, but what you're saying is it's the same idea. This would displace, this would change everything. And moreover, it's better for somebody to want to keep that, because who is the enemy in this? It's not, it could be a country, but it might just be an industry. And you talk about cui bono, qui prodest. Who benefits or who suffers were this to be made public? Now, is anybody going to be going after this?
There's a great saying that revolution will never reach the center of an organization because the organization is founded upon the status quo.
Yes.
And you're exact. So when I heard this story about this guy being killed, the excitement of this new technology and how it would change the world was completely moderated, like you say, by the reality that there's so many, the money is so much going to be suffering if this guy's technology actually makes it to the light of day.
Let me ask you
this. Think of all the oil companies. Think of all the energy companies. Think of all the energy delivery. Everything. The world economy is going to change so drastically that it actually is. It's probably best that this not be introduced to the world at this time.
Right.
It's
let me ask you this.
That or a competing
let me ask
country.
you this. Imagine this. You are being asked to speak before your alma mater or whatever it is. And you're going to be telling young people the wisdom, the future of going after something that would make, in essence, cancer obsolete. That cancer could go the way of polio or rickets or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Now, you're then saying, I just signed a death warrant against, because if ever somebody says, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
We found that all cancers have this one little thing that they all share, because the whole notion about cancer is that it is some of it starts differently. It's slow growing, and it's it's treatable. But what if I found out that all cancers start from this one particular mechanism, and I have made cancer obsolete, and then all of a sudden places like Memorial Sloan Kettering, MD Anderson, pick the bio, this would kill. It would be, I'm sorry to say, it would be like you shutting down or stopping computers. You're stopping progress, because in the calculus of profit, nobody ever says, yes, that may be true, but humanity is benefited, and think about the productivity of people living. No, Tesla found this out when he started talking about a place on Long Island where he was going to have this, you would be able to tap into. So anyway, I think I've answered your question. Now, here's the next question. Who is going to pursue this? No one.
Well, that's the thing. Is it this whole thing is, yeah.
But do you think if you were to bring this up to somebody, I just mentioned something about Son of Sam. Can you imagine me going in and say, "Hey, listen, folks, NYPD or anybody," because I think the NYPD is great, and I don't mean any harm. I'm not saying that, but let's just say, "Hey, police department, all you guys who were basically retired early because of your, you retired and you were given all kinds of promotions. Well, guess what? That's all BS. Turns out that the guy that you said did it, he didn't do it. What?" There was an old joke years ago. It's not even a joke, but it says, "Did you hear that Alex Haley committed suicide?" He goes, "Oh no, that's terrible. Why?" He says, "He found out he was adopted." And the thing is that this is a whole storyline. You're going to completely change everything. What if I told you, let's keep going, that the whole notion of American slavery was wrong? That the number one culprit, let's just assume, arguendo, the number one culprit of the slavery mechanism was Black and African complicity, not the narrative you've heard. There, people would say, "Oh, no, 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 you're not going to do that." What if I were? Why do you think historical revision is so hated? Can you imagine if I said, your version of this story, pick your narrative. But if I told you, no, it's not like this. Years ago, there was a book called Out of Africa. And there were people who believed that everything started from Africa, not Egypt, not the library at Alexandria, but in Africa. And somebody said, that's bogus. And immediately you were shot down. What if I'm not done yet. What if I showed you that gayness, homosexuality is a mental illness? Wait a minute. What? Stop it. They're not even, most people would say, don't you want to hear? What if I told you that I've got proof positive, hypothetically, that, let's say, the 9/11 scenario was that it was all a controlled demolition? Let's just assume that. People would say, "Oh, no, you don't. You can't, we don't want to hear that." So with that in mind, do you think your story is going to be any different with the billions and perhaps trillions of dollars of lost profit? Are you kidding me?
My favorite quote, which has a corollary, is it's actually the corollary that makes the quote great. One of my favorite quotes is, you heard the quote, "Fact is stranger than fiction." Mm-hmm. But the corollary is the best part of that. The fact is stranger than fiction because fiction is bound by the limits of believability.
Yes.
And it points to exactly what you're saying, which is that it's true. Sometimes things that are completely impossible to believe are actually reality. We just don't want to believe it. Your point about slavery is absolutely correct. You remember the guy remember when Obama was president and there was that Harvard professor who didn't have the key to his apartment and he got into a big scuffle and then they had a summit and they had a beer.
Right, Gates.
Gates, exactly.
Right.
He is obviously African-American Black man. Mm-hmm. It was him who wrote an article, you can Google it, on how the United States and the slavery trade of that was in the United States was only what percent of the total slavery of the world, Lionel? 2%. Mm-hmm. We in the United States talk about slavery endlessly, when in reality it was only 2% of the entirety of slavery during those centuries. Can you believe this?
Well, there's a thing to it, right? I've studied, but I'm fascinated by how people do not like. Again, when somebody says your reality is wrong, let me give you an example of something. You being a kind of science because to me science is beautiful and it doesn't care what you think, doesn't care. No. There was a study a while back that said that in certain parts of the world, Okinawa, certain Greek islands, that people live, that the number of centenarians, whatever, were greater And they said, gee, I wonder why. And this is where it got dangerous. So there's one particular point. They said this one group of people, the men drink a little glass of wine a day, red wine. And then people said, it must be the resveratrol in the grapes, which of course, because of this wonderful concept called hormesis, which makes things stronger and better. Therefore, if we drink wine or take resveratrol, that was it. They pointed to one little observation out of a myriad of, okay. So one person raised his hand and said, I got a crazy idea, but did you do a control study with people who didn't drink? They said, what? Did you do it? They said, maybe the underlying reason for this is because anybody who was so disciplined where they could contain just one little glass of wine a day, maybe that discipline shown or was indicated in other behaviors. And furthermore, what if no alcohol was involved in this? None. They went berserk because you're saying abstinence, get out of here. I want to step further. I'm going to go. Do you remember the book Bell Curve? Was his name? The one who said that there were appreciable differences in. Pardon me?
The curly hair guy.
No, this was somebody different. This was Martin. Anyway, but it said that there were representative, significant differences in IQ distributions based upon race. That certain races did better, and purely, not to the point where it was so significant. Yeah. They, I forget his name, Martin or whatever his name. They shut him down.
Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
Oh, okay.
You're going to be doing this all night long, aren't you? Hang on a minute. Bell Curve book, and his name was Charles Murray. It was Herrnstein and Murray, 1994. Okay, so let me ask you a question. You being scientific, would you agree that certain races, certain ethnicities enjoy certain physiognomy, bone structure, eyelids, epicanthus, hair texture, skin texture? You don't see a lot of Cambodians in the NBA for reasons because they tend, as a population, not to be very tall or as tall as others. Okay, now, if that's true, and if I can point that out to height or weight or musculature or whatever it is, why wouldn't spatial recognition, intelligence, musical ability, lyricality, why is it that here in New York, we had a fellow, our mayor, Bill de Blasio, wanted to stop and close down specialized schools. We had Bronx School of Science, Stuyvesant High School. He didn't like the fact that an overwhelming plurality of those kids who did well on tests were Asian. Now, if that's true, tell me why it's not possible that somewhere in the phylogenetic, whatever the not the morphine, but the phenotype or whatever it is of this, why can't they enjoy a greater sense of, let's say, math ability than, let's say, Alsatians or white people from Alabama? Why? Why is that beyond the realm of possibility? If people can look different and have different height distributions, why can't some people be where nature says, we don't look at intelligence as a benefit. It's just a trait. It's just a difference. It's just why can't that be? Oh, no, we don't like what you're saying. So we're going to change it and we're going to shut you down. Or in your case, you're initial. Pardon me?
It's intoxicating to favor the underclass, isn't it? We've gotten to a situation where we ignore reality and science to feel better because we're supporting something that really has no foundation in reality.
Years ago, and I mean 20, 30, who knows, 40 years ago, there was a local TV show, and I was a prosecutor, and they asked me, why do you think that I forget it was that 14% of the population, namely the African American population, whatever it was, 14%, can be responsible for almost 70% of violent felonies or criminal population or whatever it is. What do you think that is? And they wanted me to say, well, obviously it's because of the unfair bail system, because of this. And I said, well, because 70% of all violent crimes are committed by 14% of the population. And they were furious. I said, I just read your statistic. I just gave it back to you. I just rephrased it. You didn't like the way I made it sound. You didn't like what I intimated, what I suggested. So what you wanted to do is you wanted to shut me down. And it's never changed. It's never changed because you're blowing the notion of the fact that some people are better and that diversity is good, or there's something very strange. I ask people, why is it, I ask this, that you will never see a Chinese person begging on the corner? Why is that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I one time asked a question one time we went to Lucha Libre, this Mexican wrestling. I looked around and asked my friend, I said, look around. What do you notice? I said, there's not a bald Mexican in this room. Do they have a genetic predisposition for not hirsuteness, but for hair? Look at it. It's true. I said, do you see any of them? He's no. I said, well, this is an observation. Like Margaret Mead or anybody. But you see, if you do this, you're upsetting the apple cart. We don't want to hear what you have to say. You think?
The universe has no obligation to make sense to us.
And
sometimes
it does make sense. You just don't figure it out. You just don't understand it.
Right.
Jay, I thank you. Have a great and a glorious day. Please call me back at your leisure, sir. Let's go to Tom in Chicago. Tom, you're on another side of midnight with Lionel.
Yeah, I like that, Ian. That was okay. That was cool. I got a couple of things. Like, say, what if you found out Jesus was black?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, stop for a second.
Whoa.
Stop for a second.
Whoa.
Wait a minute. Stop for a second. What do you mean black? Do you mean
melanin? That's what I'm saying. What if he was dark-skinned?
Okay. Well, you might have said, for example, there are Indians, Punjabi, whatever, whose skin is very black, but they're Caucasian. People think that Caucasian, Negroid, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, there are people whose skin is, I don't want to say very, very dark, but they're Caucasian. They do not have we're not for skin color. So let's go more specific. It's not just black, not just skin color, but what if it was found out that Jesus, first of all, I would imagine that not only Jesus, but Mary, her mother Anne, Joseph would tend to, I don't think this is too far-fetched, would tend to look like the people who live there. Just call me. Joseph had to be raised somewhere. Joseph was raised in the south side of Bethlehem or wherever the hell it was. You know what I mean? So why does this bother anybody? Where did this Swedish look come from? Who were these people?
That's crazy, ain't it? But before that, you was talking about people that think they're something that they're not. Like, I got a friend. I don't know where he gets this from. He thinks he's a cop.
Well, what do you mean? How does it manifest itself?
And like you say, it fascinates me that this dude thinks he's a cop. And sometimes he think he went to the army. So when you say,
wait a minute.
Like,
how do you think? What does he do where he acts like he's a cop? What does he do? How does he manifest
he's a janitor. I don't know. He's a janitor.
No, but you say he thinks he's a cop. Meaning, what does he do? What does he say? What does he think?
When he around people, he got these boots. These cops with a black boots.
Oh yes.
And he thinks that while him having these boots on, people think that he's a cop. And when he started talking, it just goes crazy. Like, okay, then if they don't think he's a cop, and he thinks that he went to the army, and I know this guy, right? So before that, it's like, okay, I sometimes tell him, hey, man, you ain't never been to no army or you're not a cop. But it kills me when he get around, because we got friends that are cops and went to the military and all that. He gets around them and he starts talking like he's been there, you know?
I want you to do something which is fantastic. I mentioned this thing called Stolen Valor. And there's a fellow named on YouTube is called Don Shipley, former Buds 131 or former Buds 130. His name is Don Shipley, Shipley. And what he does is this guy was a Navy SEAL, and he has access to a roster of all of the SEALs who have ever been since 1943, since the Frogmen days. So people will call him and say, listen, I got this guy in our VFW, says he was a Navy SEAL. Can you run his name? His name is Tom in Chicago. And he says, nope. So he calls him up and he said, what Buds class were you? And he said, 83? That would have been 1942. I don't think so, you know. So, but anyway, he catches them. But Tom, they wear uniforms with the wrong buttons and the wrong medals. And they don't even research this. And they walk around and he speaks and it's delusional. And they're saying,
very delusional. Very. My friend sits there and he talks and I like, wait a minute, man. I mean, I'll be thinking like, how did we get here? How did he get right?
You know what
here?
you do? Let me tell you this much. What I would do with this, talk to him like he is a cop. Say, let me ask you something, Jerry. How long have you been on the force? How long have you been on the job? And talk to him.
We have talked. We had did that. We did all that. And this dude, you know, I don't do it because he know I know. But like some of the guys, like I bring some friends over and there's cops, and he'd be like, yeah, you know, I've been. They say, what precinct you out of? And I just be waiting to hear. I be sitting there with
and you're
popcorn,
saying,
like,
exactly. Well, I've met people before who were, of course, as you know, CIA, Mossad, MI6, and I'm thinking, you lay tile. What are you talking about? Which is okay.
Yeah,
which is okay.
That's my friend. It was like, you're a janitor. Stop
Tom,
it. But
Tom,
get back to the thing.
You know, the worst part, though, is the worst part, by the way, is the cop who thinks he's a janitor. That's even more frightening. Those are rarer to find, but they're bound to be out there. Listen, my friend, I must run. Please call me again next week. You are a delight and a service to the force, whatever the hell that is. Have a good day, my friend. This is Lionel with you, and this is another side of midnight.
All night long, this is another side of midnight with Lionel.
This Mother's Day, why don't you do something excitingly different for that very special lady?
Celebrate mothers everywhere. Happy Mother's Day. Who needs a superhero when you've got mom? Listen for Mother's Day messages all week long. Celebrate mothers everywhere.
This is Dominic Carter. This Mother's Day, I celebrate my grandmother, Anna Pearl Carter, because you don't have to be someone's actual mom to be maternal. And I'll never forget, I was a teenager marching in a parade as a cadet on the Grand Concourse in the Bronx. And I happened to look over, and my grandmother's there in the crowd crying like a baby because she was so proud of me. Ma, I love you.
This Mother's Day, celebrate love, strength, and everything she is, because she deserves it.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, we have served our nation as a force in readiness. From combat operations to humanitarian assistance in every corner of the world. No matter where the mission takes us today, or wherever our country needs us tomorrow, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for each other, for our nation, for us all. the few, the proud, the Marines.
This is Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Now, to the Bernard McGurk Studios, here's Lionel.
Tremendous music, by the way. Kudos for the selection. Love the style. And that bird or that... Have you ever been like in an apartment or something where these birds, you just hear them and they congregate? It's amazing the absolute determination of like a New York pigeon. You can even see from the way it walks. It kind of moves its head in defiance. They live somehow without any type of interruption whatsoever. I've always loved birds like that. Rats, a New York rat. Oh my God. So brilliant. Roaches. Nothing you can do. One time I had, remember when bed bugs it was this huge thing in New York, and I got a hold of bed bugs. It was horrible. And they look like flax seeds. So one time somebody said, make sure if you see one of these things, catch them, put them in like a jar or a glass or something so you can show the exterminator. And this guy shows up, and I had the bed bug, what I thought was a bed bug, two of them, whatever I should say, in like a shot glass with saran wrap over it. And when somebody came over, I put it behind the microwave and left it there. I can't tell you how long it was there. A year? I don't know. I have no clue. But it was a very long time. When I took it out, I said, oh, look, there's that thing. Well, they're probably dead. I shook the little shot glass, and they started mating. They're jumping on each other. Alive, just sitting there waiting. Now, they haven't had blood because they're hematophagic. Not only that, they eat blood. It's called Cymex lectularius. And they're brilliant. I wanted to be a bed bug. And I was convinced that they were being put into air vents by people in the exterminating business. They cause parasitosis, so that when you're bitten, you feel like they're all over you. You don't, like if they bite your leg, you might scratch your arm. Something happens. They're so smart. They're so good that when people say, hey, I'm going to move, I'm not going to sleep in the bed, I'm going to sleep on the couch, they just say, oh, you're over there now? We follow the carbon dioxide. We'll follow you. No problem. Stay right there. We're on our way. If people would grease the actual posts of the bed up, they would figure out a way. They would go up your wall, across the ceiling, and drop on you. They'd hide behind picture frames, and they're just brilliant. But my favorite New York critter is that little plant, that little stem, that little twig, that little leaf that grows between sidewalk slabs. It's so persistent. You can just see it. This little shoot. There's nothing there. It goes through concrete. That's the one. I want to raise those things. What is that? I want to hybridize everything with that indestructible, whatever it was, in any event. Well, first of all, let me also remind you to thank Mr. Bill Lee and Mr. Tony Atwood, who were just incredible. Again, keeping everything smooth. They are the best in the business, and I'm honored to call them my friends. I've known them for years, since the Coolidge administration. And thank you so much for listening. This is Lionel with you, reminding you, my friends. By the way, Lionel.news is where you can find me. But remember, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya.
Sacco and Felice, New York and New Jersey's premier attorneys at law. Their team brings decades of experience across a wide range of practice areas. Whatever life brings, they're your legal team. From everyday matters to complex cases, they've got you covered with the experience you need and the results you want. Because when life gets complicated, they make it simple. SaccoFelice.com. SACCOFILLAS.com. 2 C's, 2 L's.